What's going on, guys? Christian Balmaceda here with My Home Group, bringing a quick video to you guys. And I know it's been a while, and I know you guys missed me so much. I apologize. I have not been sharing enough information, making enough videos, or getting this information out to you guys as regular as I had hoped. As you can see, casually dressed. I was actually out and about on the road all day today, helping some out-of-state clients doing a final walkthrough. And the reason for this video was because I had been listening to some different podcasts and talk radio and things like that about the market, and something struck me that I have known about but never really thought about, and was like, this is really important information to get to you guys about our market, and specifically to talk about the crash or the bubble that people are expecting to happen, and the differences between the 07-08 market compared to today's market, and why all the experts and the financial experts are saying that this market is hot. It's going to continue to stay hot. There might be a slowdown, but there will not be a crash or a burst of a bubble. And I know if you're like me, you're probably thinking, well, back in 07 and 08, they were saying that too, and yet, boom, the bubble burst. There's a lot of differences that were presented in the different things that I was listening to that I was not aware of, and I've now read up on and realized that our market is way different today than it was back in 07 and 08. If you look back at the 07-08 market, you're aware of the fact that the biggest culprit for that market crashing the way it did and the bubble bursting was because of the lending practices that were in place back then. If you watch the movie The Big Short, it explains it pretty well in that movie as to exactly what happened and what caused that. Overlending, not qualified buyers, low down payments is one of the things that was brought up, as well as the flexible mortgages or mortgage rates, so like the ARMs and things like that, as well as there was an oversupply back in 07 and 08 compared to today when there's an undersupply. So take into account that back in 07 and 08, you had about, the average down payment was 9% on most homes, but you had 45% of homeowners were financing 100% of their home compared to today, where it's 11%. Also, the average down payment today is around 15.9%. So you see an increase in more down payment, which means that there's more equity when somebody gets into a home rather than back in 07 and 08 where you had less equity. And also you had several more thousands upon millions of people that were borrowing on a home and not putting any money down, which means that really caused an issue in that market. Now, let's dive a step a little bit further into this, and let's take into account the interest rates and things that we're looking at in that regard. So today, your average 30-year fixed interest rate is around 4%. We're seeing lower rates, but that's kind of just where the average is at right now. If you look back in 07-08 with the adjustable rate mortgages, people were getting mortgages at 15%, but keep in mind, for the first 5 years, they were paying interest only on those loans. So that means they're only paying interest payments on a mortgage, and once they got hit in the 5th year, they now are sitting at a 15% interest rate, can't afford the house anymore, and that causes a huge issue with foreclosures and things like that happening because people can't afford those mortgages anymore. Now, let's dive into inventory, because that's something else that we talked about how there was an oversupply in 07 and 08, undersupply today. So back in 07-08, there was on average around 4 million homes nationwide on the market regularly for people to look at and purchase. In today's market, we're at 1.16 million on average nationwide. That's a huge difference. That right there explains why prices continue to go up and why we're continuing to see things the way they are in this market, because there's just not enough supply to keep up with the demand. The last thing we want to talk about is, let's talk about foreclosures, because that was a big thing that caused an issue in the 07-08 burst, was all the foreclosures that happened because people couldn't afford their homes anymore, so everybody was just walking away from their mortgages, and banks were trying to figure out who owned what home and what to do with the house and things like that. Back in, I believe it was March of 2008, there was roughly 234,685 foreclosure filings. This year in April, we had roughly 11,000 plus. I want to say like 11, I think it was like 11,800 and something, 11,810 or somewhere around there in April of this year. That's a huge difference in foreclosure filings. So there's your big difference between the two markets. 07 and 08, poor lending practices, low down payments, if any down payment at all. Fixable or adjusted rate mortgages, ARMs, rates that adjusted based off, when they were paying and making payments. Oversupply, 4 million plus homes available nationwide regularly, and huge filings of foreclosure around 236,000 in just 2008 of April, whereas today we're looking at an average fixed interest rate of 4%, average down payment around 16%, substantially less 100% financed homes, a very small supply of 1.16 million nationwide, and I mean foreclosures, we are going to see them, but they're only at about 11,000, 12,000 currently, about a month, 2 months ago, I guess, April. So that is what's going on with the market. That is the reason why we are not in the same predicament we were back in 07 and 08, and that's the reason why you need to be aware that while you may think there's going to be a crash and there is a bubble, as of right now it doesn't exist because we are comparing apples to bananas. They don't match up. They're not the same. We're in a completely different area and market than we were then. If you have more questions, have anything else that I can answer for you, feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, 623-693-5667. You can email me at chrisbrealty@gmail.com, or you're welcome to just comment here in this video, and I'd love to chit chat with you here on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're seeing this video. I appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the day, and remember, you're more than a transaction.